Greetings, friends. Welcome to another Saturday episode of Countdown to His Coming. It's a historic week ahead as we're sitting right now on the 17th of August, 2024, the week before the Democratic National Convention and the sprint to election 2024. Well, my question for you is, do you think Christians should get involved in this election? Do you think they should vote? Do you think they should be on the sidelines? Do you think they should do weird things based on their conscience? Well, all of that comes into play today as we look at some of the amazing turns, how in just a short period of time, just a few months, Kamala Harris has gone from being the most unpopular vice president almost in history that most folks said were clueless. Some were even saying, can we possibly, if Biden runs for re-election, even get a different VP to run with him? And it's gone from that to, all of a sudden she is the princess waiting to be crowned. She's just the best thing since sliced bread, and we all need to run vote for her. Where does this come from? It comes from a media barrage that seems to have all of a sudden been a part of the new decision, the decision to anoint her as the next coming of a savior for the United States of America. Now, if you're believing that stuff, you haven't been paying attention. But what really blows me away is how Christians are now being told that you should get on that bandwagon. You don't have to go far to look for these articles. It was on the front page of your MSN news feed. I had several others, but when this one popped up this morning, I thought, this is a perfect example of where it's going. What does the article say? It says, and by the way, from the Religious News Service, which, by the way, has been taken over by a left-leaning group, which is why you'll see more of these kind of articles in RNS. It says a diverse group of Christians is throwing support behind Vice President Kamala Harris' White House bid, organizing fundraisers and Zoom calls in hope of helping catapult the Democrat to victory in November. And they say, reclaiming their faith from Republicans in the process. Now, of course, their efforts have come on the heels of similar campaigns aimed at specific constituency groups, such as the recent White Dudes for Harris Zoom call, and other things, where it seems like it wants to identify what groups would never vote for Kamala Harris. And let's make up a group of people that are from that group that will and try to push them to the forefront. Interesting strategy, isn't it? Well, as some of these folks were talking about this, some liberal activists who also claim that they must be Christians said, hey, we've had a conversation about how specifically on the Democratic side of the political spectrum, you don't hear a lot of people talking about their faith. Well, I wonder why that is. And he went on to say, we wanted people to know that there are progressive Christians. There are Christians on the Democrat left-leaning side, so they don't have to feel alone. Well, the result was a fundraiser for Harris's presidential bid. They raised some money, and it's amazing to see where this thing is going. Down in the article, you'll find these words: a number of Christian groups, including evangelicals, a constituency key to former President Donald Trump's base, have assembled similar calls in the lead up to the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Most have had little to no assistance from the official Harris-Walz campaign, which, barely a month old, has yet to even announce a dedicated faith outreach director. I wonder what kind of person that could be, considering the positions of the Harris-Walz campaign. Well, hang on, let's keep going. They said that it's a false assumption that to be Christian is to be Republican or a supporter of former President Donald Trump. Well, as they keep saying this, the question is, why? Which of the policies of Kamala Harris would you identify as pro-Christian or anti-Christian? Do the same thing with the policies of the Republicans and Donald Trump's campaign. Start checking off the list and see what you find. What you'll find is a list that, as far as Christians are concerned, is all right of the Harris campaign. All Republican stands or close to Republican stands. There's just little of anything in the Democratic platform that a Christian, a real Christian, a Bible-believing Christian, should support. But while this article seems to push the idea that Christians for Kamala is the new flag to wave if you want to get some support, she lists a group, and this article lists a group of folks that are supposed to be under a Christian banner, but when you start naming names and checking them out, no, they're far left Marxists in many cases, parading as Christians to try to deceive you. Well, here's what I think is quite interesting when we get down into the article. One of those folks that they put on the platform to try to say, oh, you need to support Kamala, is a guy that is a Presbyterian Church USA. Now, PCUSA went far off the left cliff a long time ago. I still know a handful of people that you're hanging on with that denomination because it's your historical little church in your little town and you just don't want to let go of it, but your denomination is gone. It, because of that, has lost millions of members over the last few years and continues to be not a picture of where evangelical Christianity is, but a picture of what happens to your denomination when you let it get infiltrated by the left. Well, this particular guy stood up, a Presbyterian Church USA minister who says, my faith in Jesus leads me to reject Christian nationalism and commit myself to the project of a multiracial, multicultural democracy where we can all freely love God and fully love our neighbors. That same faith leads me to support Vice President Harris to be the next president of the United States. What a crock, my friends. You see, that is just the kind of rhetoric that if you try to get someone to break it down and open it up, can't hold water if you really claim to be a Christian. But in the collapse of some Christian denominations that we've seen from the inside here lately, we had to follow the trail of money coming from those groups that do not even like the United States and want it to collapse. And you find that there's a much deeper strategy involved here. They call this particular guy a member of a mainline denomination. And mainline denominations like PCUSA have never been considered in recent history to be evangelicals, but yet here he is speaking on an Evangelicals for Harris event call. And so, hey, here we are with new events targeting conservative Christians to say, you need to vote for this person. Now, some of you don't even like the idea that I'm addressing this subject today. Oh my goodness, we need to separation of church and state. We need to stay off of these issues. But guess what? Only the Democrats will try to use that against you to get you to shut up while they parade this kind of stuff, advertising to reach out to Christians, even creating little Bible study groups and material you can get that sounds like it's not in any way prejudiced, but is. It's a total left can of garbage that you're supposed to actually put into your church and let your small groups use it. It'll just help disarm them on all of these Christian issues that are out there these days. See, they don't mind using this platform at all for their own causes. They will go to churches, they will use Christian names and banners, all to support their Marxist beliefs, and you're supposed to just let it go and stay behind your church pew and say nothing. Well, these Christians for Kamala now are somehow trying to convince believers that hands down we're saying, my goodness, it seems like the Democrats have thrown us under the bus. We need to get over here as one solid group and support candidates that are either Christian or at least pro-Christian in the causes they support. Well, of course, this has sparked backlash from many conservatives. It's mentioning several of those even in this group. One said this was a call of apostasy that's going on within the Democratic Party, and on social media actually described these folks as really heretics for Harris. Heretics for Harris, boy, that makes a bumper sticker, doesn't it? Franklin Graham son of famed evangelist Billy Graham, even decried a new advertisement that was produced by the Evangelicals for Harris, targeting swing state voters, saying it was trying to mislead people by doing what? Putting images of Billy Graham in their advertising. Yeah, Franklin Graham, who prayed at the Republican National Convention. I hope you had a chance to look at that wonderful prayer. Instead, here are these other folks trying to claim the high ground and say, oh, no, now, look, if Billy Graham was around, he wouldn't be supporting the Republicans and Donald Trump. He'd be over here in the Harris camp. Isn't that ridiculous? Yeah, Billy Graham, if he has view of this from heaven, is having a fit. Let's put it that way. Well, calling for folks to vote for Kamala Harris is something that you can't really promote among Christians if you deal with the issues. So they're not dealing with the issues at all. Here's what they're doing. Listen to this quote. Voting for Kamala for me is so much greater than politics. Well, it's a vote against another 4 years of faith leaders justifying the actions of a man who destroys the message Jesus came to spread. And that's why I got involved in politics. This is supposed to make you feel better. Well, when you got involved, did you check out the background of Harris half as well as you did believing the lies that people are promoting about Donald Trump? Did you check out the background of this new vice presidential candidate, Tim Walz? Did you check out what he has done in Minnesota? And do you want your state, your country to look like California and Minnesota? Well, I would hope not. But as we look at this, we find books are coming out, more press conferences, more Zoom calls, none putting Harris on the stand to take tough interview questions from folks that should be asking them, but instead just more of this fluffy little vote for Kamala and feel good stuff if you really want to be a genuine Christian that may deceive many people. Now, here's the idea. As we look at some of these statements that's been made about Kamala Harris, I'm just going to stop. You can read these articles for yourself. You've got to ask your questions seriously based on the issues. Now, what are you going to vote for if you're a believer in Jesus Christ? It's based on what you believe, those biblical moral values that you've carried, hopefully all of your life, or at least since you became a believer in Jesus. And there's some things you just don't do. I'm going to list just a few of these. It's going to sound like more than a few, but I can't get all of them in today. If you're a believer in Jesus, you don't believe that hardened felons who've burned down your cities, attacked police, and assaulted citizens should be released. If you are a believer in Jesus, you don't believe in open borders that have allowed an invasion of 20 million people, including murderers, gangs, thieves, and terrorists, into our nation. If you're a believer in Jesus, you don't believe in the transgender lunacy that allows boys in the locker rooms of your daughters and granddaughters while making tampons available in the boys' restrooms. If you're a believer, you don't believe in identifying historic American Christianity as a terrorist group by calling them Christian nationalists. You don't believe in the endless printing of money that makes the dollar worthless and drives inflation, thereby hurting all American families. You don't believe in the unrestricted slaughter of unborn infants up until birth or their infanticide after. You don't believe in anti-Semitism or the support of terrorist organizations and countries that promote the killing of Jews. And of course, you don't believe in celebrating any lifestyle that reduces what the Bible labels as sin and abomination to just another choice, much less making it a protected class that gets to spread its poisonous lies to the youngest public school kids. And if you're a believer in Jesus, you don't believe in the climate hysteria that will have you trade your meat for bugs. You know, I could go on and on listing these, but in all the don'ts I have just read, I have basically read all the things that the Kamala Harris Democratic platform is for. Yeah, you can argue with me on one or two of those, but the evidence is clear. And if you check out the evidence and follow the money trail, This is where it will land every single time. What is it I'm trying to tell you? Well, I'm telling you that, number one, you can't be a bystander in the stands in a nation that has a free system of elections, at least we say we do, during this time. You, as a responsible citizen of any nation, are there to help promote it and bless it, to turn it towards God. So what are you doing? Friends, don't be fooled. Don't be fooled by people who walk in darkness but claim the light. And this fall, you will vote. So you're saying, oh, no, I'm just in my own conscience not able to vote this year. I'm going to sit this one out. Or, well, I'm going to vote, but, I'm going to pick one of these little odd candidates that's, has no chance of winning anything, but, that's where my conscience is, and I'm going to vote for that person. Oh, friends, no, you're voting only one of two ways. Regardless of the choice you make, if you decide to sit it out, and we have to say this because millions of Christians did not vote in the last presidential election. Millions. Friends, what are you going to do this time? You're going to vote, whether you like it or not, one of two ways. You're either going to vote to make America a bastion of religious freedom of the last days, or you're going to vote to surrender to the beast and say that, this worldwide movement that we're watching having taken over most of Western Europe and a number of other nations now, that's just surrendering to this beast that Daniel described in Daniel chapter 7 that would be all over the world in the last days. You're going to vote either to make America a place where freedom might reign until Jesus comes, or you're going to vote to surrender to the beast. And voting for the wrong candidates or not voting at all is a vote for the latter. You're going to have to make a choice, my friends. And not everything you see about the Republican platform or about Donald Trump is something that you're excited about. But you've got a clear choice. Never have the battle lines been drawn more clearly than they are right now. And you're going to have to decide what you're going to do. Because, my friends, your vote this fall absolutely does count. Well, hey, thanks for spending some time with me this morning. I hope you will make sure that you worship with God's people, get inspired, get motivated, and get ready to serve the Lord in these last days by attending church somewhere tomorrow. And if you're anywhere near Hendersonville, North Carolina, I would invite you out to the Mud Creek Baptist Church, where I'll be preaching at the 10:30 service in the morning. But you find some of God's people somewhere to hang out with so that you can be strong and spiritually prepared for what's coming in these last days. God bless you. I'll see you again Monday morning as we wake up in God's Word.